And hello, everybody on YouTube. My name is Road to Recovery. Thank you once again for joining us for our interview series. And I have Garry Shepard. He is the founder of XXX Life No More. And Gary and I had the opportunity to converse via Twitter, or I guess they call it X now. Seems to go with your
Yeah,
own logo there.
right.
And I ran across you on Twitter and I started reading through some of your content and I said to myself, there is a content creator who is doing sort of the similar things that I'm doing as well. And he had a story to tell in his own right. And the first thing I did is I reached out to you and I said, I would love to hear your story. Gary,
Mm.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a subject that's not very popular among the masses, but it is a subject that needs to be had, and so I count it an honor and a privilege to be able to come and interview on your show here. And so a little about myself. I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut. I'm the oldest of five. I have three brothers and one sister. I grew up, like I said, Hartford, Connecticut. I grew up in the rough part, the north end of Hartford. um, a quiet kid. A quiet kid. Always stayed to myself. Have a big family on my dad's side, and I was raised in the church
Mm.
by my uncle Larry. May he rest in peace. He's been gone for a long time, but he's been very influential in my walk with Christ. So, um, where can I start? So,
Well,
yeah,
you are in a porn recovery channel, so get
yeah,
us to the part where things started taking that turn.
okay. So, my first encounter, and I talk about it in my podcast as well. So, my first encounter with porn was a Playboy magazine.
Mm.
And what happened was me and my brother, we were my brothers, the second oldest and my younger brother, Anthony. We were all wrestling because back then we were fans of wrestling, WWF. That's when it was WWF.
Yeah.
And you had, the wrestlers. I'm going back to when the wrestlers were beating up on the skinny guys and throwing them around. And that's how far back I'm going as far as being a wrestling fan back when it was Hulk Hogan and Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
And so we're wrestling and it spills from the hallway into my mom's room. And then we all land on my mom's bed, and then like the magazines are all spread out
Mm.
on the bed. And so I happen to pick one up, and when you're a kid, you're curious. It's like you're looking, I'm scrolling through the pages, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. This is different.
Yep.
And so from then on, I was immediately addicted to it. But I didn't realize that it was registering in my subconscious. So all those images were stuck in my subconscious. So as I got older, I was sexually active. I was out there just looking, man, looking left and right. And when I got to my 20s, I went crazy. It was me and my best friend. Me and my two best friends, they were fraternal twins. We had our own apartment, and I'm telling you, man, I was just indulging.
Yeah.
It was bad, man. Um,
Before we get too much further, though, how old were you when you found those Playboys on the bed?
I was between 8 and 9.
Wow. So you were really young. I mean, puberty
Yeah.
hadn't quite kicked in yet.
It hadn't quite kicked in yet. Yep, I was 8 or 9. I remember that very well. Um, a basement apartment in Hartford, Connecticut,
And
506 Gardner Street.
so at that time that you're 8 or 9, you hit it the first time. Did you find yourself like trying to revisit it at that point? I mean, like when parents were out or whatever.
No, not really. I think once I hit like 12 and 13, that's when I started to revisit it.
Okay.
Me and my best friends, we would sit there, we would look at the magazine, and then it went from magazines to watching movies on cable, HBO and Cinemax. Back then they had those movies late at night where they thought kids were sleeping,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was sneaking. I would watch those, so that was like kind of like fueling the seed I was planting in my head.
Yeah,
So and plus I'm not gonna lie, I was a devious kid too, so that didn't make it any better.
yeah,
I made sure my brothers and my mom was asleep because my mom and my father, they were separate.
yeah,
They were separated, but he would still come, just to check on us, make sure that we're okay. So I kind of like took advantage of that. so
yeah.
so my mom would come, I would either like turn the TV off or I would like dim it down so she would know that the TV's on, and then when she goes back, I turn it back, and yeah, it was bad. It was bad, man.
And so, like, going all the way up into your teens, I'm guessing at this point, you're starting to like revisit the pornography consumption. Because I know back in that day, like when you still had magazines, kids this generation they just don't understand.
They
Back
don't.
in that day, like you had to go
Mhm.
looking, man. It wasn't easy.
You had to. It was no easy access, man. Like even in the drugstores, man, they had security walking around, and they, I laugh about it now. They used to have the like a little thin piece of brown paper
Yeah, yeah,
and put it in front of it. Like, and I would kind of like move it a little bit, and then when the security come, I would, act like I'm not doing anything, and then just slide a little bit more, slide a little bit more. It's like, but yeah, man. Back then, man, like you said, you really had to look for it. If you came across it, that means somebody was just, looking at it and forgot to put it up,
yeah, yeah.
because that was the only way you were really seeing it. And then, of course, it evolved to magazines, to VCR tapes, and then, we get a little further into the years,
Hmm.
DVD,
Yep.
Blu-ray, and then from there, oh yeah, rewinding back. There used to be a show called Dream On. I don't know if you remember it. Remember it? It used to come on HBO.
All the HBO stuff, like it was late because
Mhm.
my parents didn't pay for it after a time, so I was one of those kids that had to stay up late, and you'd have the fuzzy screen, and then once in a while it clear up just enough for you to see the
Yes,
boob. That's what
yeah,
I was doing.
right. So it was a show called Dream On, and a guy, like, he was always imagining himself like having sex with different women,
Yeah,
and so you would see all these different, because cable did little to hide the stuff. I mean,
yeah,
it was almost looked like it was real if if you didn't know any better. And so this is what I was just constantly consuming my mind with, man. And I'm telling you, man, I remember going up into my adulthood, like I said, in my 20s when I lived on my own, like it was bad because sex was like the only thing that mattered to me more than life itself.
wow.
And that was bad. Really.
When did you
You
start?
talk about,
When did you start
Mhm.
recognizing it was like what was the indicator for you that the I want to say that point where things started to be recognized as a real problem in your life? Like, what point was it where you recognized that that was truly a situation where things had changed for you?
I'm going to say when I got married.
How old were you then?
When I got married, I was 25 when I got married.
Hmm.
My wife was 22 at the time. And I noticed that when I got married, that it seemed like, so, okay, what happened was, as I was dating, I was, doing my thing. I was fueling, my sex and porn addiction. So when I got married, things lay dormant for a little bit. And this is how I know how the enemy works, like, because it was subtle. Like I haven't indulged in porn or anything because, I was happy. I had just got married, and, I was living my life. But like 2 or 3 years into my marriage, I can remember this as clear as day. I was in our old apartment, and I was sitting in the living room. And as I was sitting in the living room, I had this strong urge, a
Mm.
strong sexual urge. And I'm like, wait a minute, where's this coming from? And I kid you not, I go to my brother-in-law's room, and I'm telling you, this is how people don't understand that, porn addiction, it also has a demonic aspect to it as well. So I was sitting there, had this strong sexual urge, and I go in there and I go in his room and I'm like, where's this coming from? And it's almost like, when Batman had the bat signal, when Commissioner Gordon put the bat signal up and
Yeah.
Batman goes to it because, the signal, he sees the signal. That's what it was. And then when I went under the bed and I pulled out the box, it was a whole bunch of porn DVDs.
Wow.
I kid you not. And I looked at it and it was like my mind just went back. It reverted back to when I was addicted, and then I started consuming it once again.
Yeah.
And it got bad. I was consuming it like every day. Every day I was just damn. I was just punishing my brain.
Hmm.
I would put it in because his room was like right here, and then it was the living room, and then our front door was right there. So I would watch it. I'll make sure it's low. And then, of course, when I'm done, I'll take it out and I'll put it back in the cover and, fix it the way, I took it out and push it back under there. But one day, um, my wife, because I used to watch on the computer too,
Hmm.
and I forgot to erase the history.
Ooh.
And she got on it and she said, what's this? And at first she thought it was my brother-in-law. And so I had to confess, I'm like, honey, it's me. And she was so upset, man. I, she cried, and I felt so bad, man.
How long had you guys been married at that point?
We have been married for I'll say about 3 years.
Mm.
3 years into the marriage that happened, and
And this is
I,
the
I
first time.
felt,
This is the first time she gets a sense that something's going on. I mean,
yeah,
obviously, you confess, but this is her first sense that you've got an addiction.
exactly, yep. Because, like I said, it lay dormant for a little bit until I came across those DVDs, and then it just reawakened that sexual the lust within me.
And
You know,
she didn't know about anything you had in your past, though, right? Like she didn't know about like
no,
prior
no,
consumption.
I didn't tell her.
Yeah.
I didn't tell her. And so after that, you would have thought that I would stop, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't stop. I just went down. I went downhill from there. And the sad thing about it is I robbed my wife 11 years of happiness because of that. And when 11 years, like she would want to go out to eat, spend quality time and everything. And I'll just be like irritable. I'll be full of guilt, shame, and anger, because that's all the things that come with it, you know, when you're consuming porn, because, you have that guilt of, it's wrong, but you can't stop. And that guilt of, what if my wife finds out again?
Hmm.
What if my wife finds out that, I'm still consuming it after she caught me the first time? All those different things that goes on in your head. Like, a lot of people don't understand, like, when you're addicted to porn, there's so much that goes into it, you know, like mentally, physically, spiritually. You have all those different things coming at you all at once. And so it's really hard to fight something that comes at you all different ways,
Yeah.
you know?
And
And
we just list them real quick because we got the cravings, right? We've got
yep,
the anticipation, the planning,
exactly.
all the and in between that, like when you're doing your
Mhm.
anticipation and planning, you're usually deceiving. Like you're telling somebody somewhere, sometime, because you're trying to isolate. You're deceiving somebody about what your actual intentions are, so that you can be alone, so that you can go get the porn. So all those
Exactly.
things like
Hmm.
happen simultaneously, and sometimes they all happen like that because you're not
Hmm.
even really processing or that's the biggest thing, especially when you get into recovery, is slowing down so you get the time to
Yeah.
process things. But yeah, all those things happen simultaneously, and like I said,
Yeah.
sometimes it just hits you like a train and you don't even have control over it.
And I mean, like, even like with the process of your brain recovery, man, doing research and everything, it takes for, let's say you consume maybe 20, 30 seconds of a porn video. You know that it could take months for your brain to recover.
Yep.
That's how damaging that thing is. And I didn't even realize that, man. So like I said, 11 years, I robbed my wife 11 years of happiness. Then on top of that, um, 11 years of happiness and just not only being porn addicted, but porn addicted and and a leader in the church.
Mm.
I was a minister at the time, and I was, it made me, this porn addiction, it made me ineffective. It made me very ineffective. Like even like my preaching and my teaching was just, it was weak. It was weak because I knew I wasn't living right, but I said, as long as I go and I do what I'm supposed to, nobody would know. Nobody would know that I have this porn addiction. But
But
while everybody else is happy in church and celebrating and happy and going forth in the Lord, I'm sitting there broken. I'm sitting there confused. I'm sitting there filled with guilt and shame and not able to give God my all because I know that I'm living wrong, but I'm trying to hide it. And the more I'm hiding it, the more it's killing me inside. The more I'm like dying inside, you know?
yeah.
And so when I think back and that's like, wow, man, it's a lot, man.
Yeah, I mean, everybody gets that little bit of sense of hypocrisy, especially when you're trying to lead in some sort of moral or ethical edge, like you're doing. I mean, you're actually preaching an ethos to other people, yet here
Right,
you are participating, behind the scenes in this immoral activity.
exactly. And I tell you, man, God He is so good, man. He is so patient, man. He's so patient with me, man. And, now when I think about it now, I can't help but smile and just thank him for giving me a chance to make it right. You know, I remember my wife, her last straw. Her last straw, she was, I'm sorry,
It's all right.
phone call, a phone call came in. Uh, anyways, so what ended it all was the simple fact that my wife had had enough. She had enough. She was like, tired of this. And I kid you not, man, it really hurt because like she got to the point where we became roommates.
Mm.
But the simple fact I didn't realize was that we were living as roommates because of my addiction. I remember, man, she would come home from work and I'll be like, how you doing, honey? And she'll just be just silent. Her mind would be elsewhere. When she would leave for work, she would give me a kiss on the forehead and that's it. Like she was like literally like done.
Yeah.
And that really touched me because it's like, wow, like that's the first time in my life that I realized that the way I was living was hurting other people. Because when you're under this addiction, it's all about you. It's just you, 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 you. You don't think about the people that are around you. You don't think about how you're hurting them. You may not be hurting them physically, but emotionally you are by neglecting them.
Yes.
You know, this is once again, this is my wife.
Yeah.
I was living, my wife. We celebrated 17 years in August 26th.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yep, 17 years, 19 years together. And I tell you, man,
Well, you said your wife, and if you don't mind me mentioning, you have
yeah.
children in your life as well. What were your children around at the time that you had this discovery, or that she had this discovery about, just the giving up and just recognizing that you guys were just basically roommates at this point?
Yeah, so when I lived in Hartford, my wife, we had two miscarriages
Oh, sorry.
before my miracle baby Nathan. That's our miracle baby. He's my heart. Both of them my heart. I love them both, Nathan and Mason. So yeah, this was before we had our sons. That when she first discovered it, and then when she became fed up, um, my boys were young. They were probably about 6 and 3 at the time. Yeah, they were like 6 and 3 at the time. And I'm kind of getting a little ahead of myself, but because it's
Yeah.
they're coming to me as I'm talking. So I think one of the painful things also was being afraid that my sons would come across these things
Yeah.
because it's not just me that use these computers that use different things in the house. My sons use them as well.
Yeah.
And I would sit there and I would look at them and I would be so broken because it's like, what am I doing? I don't want my sons to go through this. This is a hard thing.
Yeah, there's a word for that. They call that generational, right? It
Yeah.
all of a sudden becomes a generational problem.
Yes. Yep. Generational gravel, generational curse. And I'm like, God, I don't want to pass this on to my sons because this is hard, man. Trying to living a lie. That's what you're doing. You're living a lie.
Yep.
Because you're deceiving people. You're not telling them that you're going through some things, but you want to be alone at the same time. You want to be alone. You don't want to go out. You don't want to do anything. You don't want to spend time with family. You don't want to spend time with, it was bad. I didn't even spend time with my own sons.
There you go. Because I mean, the wife was not the only one, the only victim in that house at the time that you're doing this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sons, I didn't even spend time with them, man. And I would be so aggravated, man. I'd be so aggravated with myself and, the fact that I'm still doing this and that and neglecting my whole family.
At your top, at your height of porn consumption, like how bad was it for you? Like how much of a time suck was it? And you said your daily day, planning and stuff like that.
It was, man, listen, it was so bad that I was almost late for work every day.
Oh, it was bad
And
then.
listen, I would consume it like probably 15, 20 minutes before it was time for me to go.
Wow.
It was bad, man.
And it never
That
works
was,
on time because when you're in that addiction, you don't want to stop.
you don't. You don't. You be like, well, maybe I can wait till later. Like, no, let me just do it right now. Let me just do it right now. And then I got like 15, 20 minutes to get to work. And then I'm driving and, my mind is I'm all in a brain fog because I just consumed porn. And it's just,
Did you go through the night too? Would you ever do like all nighters?
sometimes. Or what happens, it will mostly be like when my wife leave for work.
Right.
I will consume it, of course, because you're not there. I don't have the risk of her coming, turning around and seeing it on my phone.
Yeah.
Because that's where I mostly consumed it from. And that's why the times that we live in, man, is so dangerous, man.
Well, that's a good conversation because you're an older person like myself, and like
Mhm.
a lot of these kids that are growing up now, it's exclusively been like a smart
Yeah.
device of some sort that they've been consuming. But you started off in a different era, man. You started off in a time where there were like DVDs and magazines and stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
When you started making that transition, because you were an early adopter, you got in when this stuff
Yeah.
was first taking off. Like
Yeah.
how bad did it get, and how quickly did that happen?
So so they classify it as two different types of porn. Well, there's many different types of porn, but where we come from the era of classic porn.
Yeah.
So now they have the era of porn that we're in now is called contemporary porn. So it's more advanced. Like you can watch it on your phone, you can watch it on, the computer. Um, Even those new glasses that Apple made, the porn industry is going to jump on that big time. The one where you can, once you put them on, you can change the whole atmosphere
Yeah.
of your room. I said, oh my gosh. I said, that is porn on overdrive, man. If you think you fried your brain with that, you're gonna melt your brain, man.
And they're
That right there, and I already know.
and they're gonna tr-
You and I already know they're gonna jump on that.
they're gonna drop an AI on top of that. So anything that you can think of, you'll just type in
Yeah,
the keywords and it'll make it happen, man. It's gonna
yeah,
be unreal. It's already starting to
yeah,
look
man.
unreal.
But yeah, it got, like I said, it got bad, man. Even at some of my jobs I worked at, man, it was bad
Oh, so you consumed at work?
work as well.
Wow. So do you ever get
It
busted?
was
Ever get busted at work?
no, there were close counters. There was close calls,
Mm,
thank God. But no, I never did, man. But like I said, that's the only thing that was on my mind, man.
yeah.
That's how bad it was. Like I would wake up with it on my mind. I would go to sleep with it on my mind. It got to the point where I couldn't even, because when you consume porn, you can't sleep.
Yeah.
You don't get a good amount of sleep. You'll get maybe a couple of hours, but then when you sleep and you wake up, you feel like you haven't slept at all.
Yep.
It's bad, man. It's really bad.
It starts to rob you of your capacity to like sit down and relax, because now your brain,
Exactly.
that plotting, that conceiving, the fantasy aspect, which is something that I don't talk about enough on my channel, but
Right, right.
the fantasy aspect, even when you're
Yeah.
away from the porn, you'll be thinking
Mhm.
about the porn, and then
Yeah.
that in and of itself will start to trigger you. And so,
Yeah.
and now all of a sudden, you've got the triggering, the craving starts happening, and it's like, shit, I'm in a dark room with
Exactly.
my wife next to me, and I can't act out right now, or can I?
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, man. I remember it took me it took me about a year to get my wife back. Um, I I don't really want to say I really can't say right now. I'm kind of waiting because, like, on my podcast, I want to bring it in. I won't say too much,
No, that's fine.
but I want to bring it in like my full story of how I had a transition because I feel like, my wife needs to be here so they can see two sides of the story, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I can remember it took a year to win my wife back. It
Well,
took a
but before we
yeah.
get to there, because you left
Mhm.
out you left about a part on me, because I want to hear about the time where you start to recognize that you got to change stuff around. So, like, what happens at that point? The second you realize, tell me about that part. The second you realize that it was bad and you had to make a change in your life, what's going on at that point?
So at that point, I started doing the things that, I was supposed to do. I started, tending more to my wife. I started to tend more to my sons. I would spend time with them. I would start playing with them. I would start, just talking with them and everything and just, making sure that she sees that I'm trying to do better. I mean, to be honest, you can't compete with 11 years of a disappointment in a couple of days
No.
or even a couple of years. I'm still not up to making up the 11 years. I think I'm short by like what about maybe 4 or 5 years. God's willing, 4 or 5 years, I can have it made up. God's willing, only God knows. But yeah. So I wanted to make sure that she see that I was intentional with what I was doing. And let me tell you, bro, it was hard, 'cause she was fed up.
Yeah.
She was there wasn't really anything I could do or say to her to make her smile.
Hmm.
And I take the blame for it. You know what I'm saying? I neglected her 11 years. What do I expect? Do I expect her to be, oh, honey, I forgive you, I see what you're doing. No. I had to really put in work.
Yeah.
I had to put in work. I had to pray. I remember I remember in my backyard, I was doing what I would do is I would go around the yard 7 times. Um, in the book in the Bible, it talks about when Joshua and them went to the AI and they had to march around the wall 7 times.
Hmm.
And on the seventh day, they marched around 7 times and all yelled. So, but what I was doing is I was praying for different things for my wife. I was praying for her mind. I would pray for her heart. I would pray that she would see that I'm being intentional, that, I really want to do right by her. I really want to make our marriage work, you know? And then, I would pray even for my mind. I would pray for my heart. I would pray like, God, just take the taste away from me. Because I tell you, man, immediately when my wife was fed up, the taste immediately left me.
Hmm.
I kid you not. There was some pain behind it. There was some major pain.
Yeah.
Because they had, I don't know, they have the saying where pleasure is pain. Like, no, pain is not pleasure. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, pain, it hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts when reality hits you. It hurts very bad, man. But I remember, man, when after about a year, I started to see a change in my wife. Because, that's when God was working in both of us. Because he had to work in her because, 11 years of being neglected, you tend to resent your spouse,
Yeah.
because I robbed her of, like I said, going out on dinner dates, spending quality time, all those different things, you know. And I remember, I went to leave for work, and I remember, like I said, she used to just give me kisses on the forehead, kiss on the forehead, kiss on the forehead. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, dang, man, I kind of feel like my sons, man.
Yeah.
I'm kind of feeling like my sons. I'm getting kisses on the forehead just like them. Like,
Yeah.
so then, she gave me a kiss, and it was like a passionate kiss, and I was like, wow. So it almost like knocked me off my feet. I ain't gonna even lie. Like, this is what I've been waiting for all year.
It's like
And let me know. Yeah,
it's like she didn't have the whole Gary the whole 11 years, and then when she's finally recognizing for that one moment that she's got the full you in front of her, that
yeah,
she can actually kiss the person that she married.
yeah. It was, man, it was like the best feeling in the world, man. And I've been ever since then, man. I've been very intentional. I won't say that I'm Superman. I won't say that I'm out of the woods because I'm not. Because I can slip just like everybody else.
Yes, sir.
But I can tell you that I have such a hate for it that when it presents itself, that hate kicks in as a defense mechanism
Good.
because I realize where I came from and I do not want to go back.
And I'm glad you brought that up because what that hints to is that despite your time in recovery, there's still temptation.
Yes,
There's still
it's gonna always be there.
cravings will manifest, you'll discover triggers everywhere. You had
Yeah.
a trigger call you from nowhere to find those
Yes,
DVDs. But I bet,
Yes.
like as I'm here, as you were telling me that story, I was like, I bet you there was something in his environment, despite the fact that you went and found those DVDs. I bet you there was just something about that location where you were acting out at one point, and then
Yeah.
that's
Oh
that.
yeah.
Bam! All of a sudden, the cravings kick in, and off you go.
Yep. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, man. I remember. So after that, I think that was 2018. That's when we reconciled.
Mm,
And so going throughout the years, our marriage was a lot better. Because I had recovered and I'm spending more time with her, and we're going on our anniversaries, and we're just living life and just loving each other and everything. And so what happened was how I came about Triple X Life No More was we used to have a Friday night. We used to have what they call Friday night fire services at my church.
yeah.
Um, I go to Crown of Glory Church of God in Christ, where my pastor is Pastor Aljo, Jonathan Aljo. And so what we would do is Friday nights, I think first Fridays, we would have different speakers come and, they would speak and stuff like that. And so there was an elder that I know very well. His name, Brierson Burke. This man, listen, this man was, he's one of those preachers where he really gets into the preaching. Like he walks on chairs and he rolls on the ground and everything. So he's like a fire preacher.
Uh-huh.
And, he was preaching, and I mean, God was moving in a place, man. And I remember he said something that really stuck with me. He said, if you hide your sin, God will expose you.
Mm,
But if you expose your sin, God will cover you. And when he said those words, all I heard in my head was Triple X Life No More.
mm,
And I was like, God, you want me to tell my story? And he's, yes, Triple X Life No More. You will tell your story, and you will create a platform where people are, if they want to, because not everybody wants to speak about, their experience with porn.
yeah. It's the hardest thing we
Not
deal with in this
everybody.
space. Hardest thing we deal with in
Yeah.
this space.
Because you're talking about coming from a place of vulnerability, and you're also in risk of being judged,
Hmm.
you know, or have that fear of being judged. And so I was, when I thought about it, I said, God, you really want me to do this? Like, telling my story? Well, I'm from an addiction? Like, I don't know. But so, I heard Triple X Life No More. So then I got in contact with my friend Hector Vasquez. So he came up. I told him about it. I said, um, I said I want to create a logo. We call it Triple X Life No More. So then he was asking me different questions, and I was like, I don't know, maybe have a circle, maybe have a sledgehammer smashing the X's. And so he did like a draft of it. I was like, yeah. I said, that's exactly how I see it. But it wasn't this color. It was the circle was red, and then the sledgehammer, I think, was the bottom part of the sledgehammer, I think, was black.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's exactly how I like it. But how about if we make the circle gold, and then the bottom of the sledgehammer gold? Because gold represents purification.
Yeah.
So when he created, I was like, man, I said, yes, this is exactly it. I said he got it like on the first try and everything, man. And I was so happy about it because it comes from a place of, I'm not in it to make money, but I would like to one day maybe make a living off of helping people.
Yeah.
If it's God's will. Some things take time, but this comes from a place of pain, a place of struggle, and a place of overcoming. So that's what this means to me. That's what Triple X Life means to me when I even display it, or when I go on and I do my little episodes and stuff like that. I do it because I want brothers and sisters that are where we were to know that, first of all, that they're not alone
Hmm.
and that you can overcome it. It's going to take some time, but you can overcome it and you will overcome it. But you have to be persistent and you have to be intentional.
Yes. Good word right there. Intentional.
You have to be intentional. You have to see, one of the things I learned is that the excuses tighten the invisible chains on you. When you're constantly listening to the excuses like, oh, see, somebody gonna find out, man, you might as well just keep quiet, don't say nothing. You know, somebody gonna find out. If they find out, they're gonna be sad, they're gonna be upset, they're not gonna talk to you anymore. If they find out, man, they're gonna judge you because you're a hypocrite.
Hmm.
You hear all those different things. But the thing about it is that God is the redeemer. He is the redeemer of not only our life, not only our souls, but he is the redeemer of time as well. And like I said, as I mentioned my marriage, 11 years of neglect, and God was able to bring us back within a year. That's nobody but God. Because when I went through this, I didn't have counseling or anything.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how I was doing it. But all I know is that I would do research here and there, and that's what would help me. And so that's my purpose of Triple X Life No More, sharing my story to let everyone know that there's life on the other side of darkness. You don't have to stay in that darkness.
What's interesting for me is that
Uh-huh.
you doing this solo, you still hit on lots of things that I would say organized programs try to get out of people who join them. One of the things is publicly confronting their addiction. And I'm not saying, getting up on a soapbox in front of a crowd full of people or whatever. That's not what we're talking about. I,
Right, right.
the first step, like when we talk about 12-step programs, is being able to say that I have an addiction, right? It's the hardest thing to do. It's the
The
hardest
hardest.
thing to do. And
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what recovery program you happen to join, whether it's Smart, whether it's 12 step with your, all the other programs, they tend to have a very common bond, is that at some point you're in a group. You stop, just talking to yourself, and now you're talking to somebody else, whether it's a therapist or another person. And in that small group, you have a group of like minds. But
Mm-hmm.
I know for myself that when I finally got the courage to just break down and say, here's what I did, and here's the problem that I have, that
Right.
I felt a personal sense of empowerment like no other.
Mm.
That it
Yes.
drove me finally. Like all the years of isolation I had spent struggling, just
Mhm.
trying to
Yeah.
keep things hidden from other people,
Mm-hmm.
now I was being open. It was like this new
Mm.
experience for me. And I say it's almost a religious experience because that's the way it felt. Like finally I get to talk
Right.
about this. And
Right.
then
Right.
it empowers you to keep talking. Like, and all of a sudden you've opened
Yeah.
up the dams and now things start spilling out. And then I'm
Right.
hearing you saying this and I was eager. So I hoping you could be able to tell me a little bit. So as you're getting to this point where you're finally getting, Triple X Life No More up and running, and you
Mm-hmm.
get in front of the camera the first time, how did that
Right.
feel for you?
Um.
Or who did you tell
Well.
first? Did you, other than your wife? I mean, did you talk to anybody else before you did this?
Well. Yeah. When I was going through, I had a couple of good brothers that I had to speak to because like I was so in a place of hurt. Like I needed to talk to somebody,
Yeah.
and so it was a couple of good brothers that still to this day, man, I appreciate them. I was able to talk to them and they didn't judge me or anything. They listened to me and they prayed with me and I thank God for them. I thank God for them. And when I first did it, I didn't actually go on video as of yet. What I did is I actually as I was putting it together, I actually did a couple songs about it
Oh,
because I'm also do like Christian hip hop and stuff like that.
yeah.
So my first song was "I Hate You," and that was, dedicated to, porn. And my chorus, I said, I hate you. You ruined my life. I hate you. Been in battle with you all my life. I hate you. Your reign of terror stops with me. I hate you. So I'm basically just saying, how it destroyed, literally almost destroyed my life. I'm talking about 28 years of my life.
Yeah.
28 years of my life wasted during porn and sex addiction. You know. And then, from there I did another song called Triple X Voice. And basically what I was doing is I was doing like for each verse, like my first verse I think it was porn speaking. The second one was flesh speaking, and then the third was me overcoming and realizing that, speaking against it, like, man, I'm not going back, you know.
Yeah.
So then, when I did my first episode for the podcast, it was called "My Innocence Was Stolen." So that's when I talk about what I just mentioned earlier about how my first encounter with porn addiction and stuff like that, and how it escalated. So my episodes, like my first season, was basically talking about my different journeys, my different things that I was going through and my research and stuff like that. And then I have my morning motivations where I'll pick a certain subject and I'll talk about it for a little bit. At first it was kind of hard because, trying to write down stuff and then go from there. Like I couldn't do that, because I will find myself stuttering. I will find myself, jamming up and everything. So what I started doing is I started just speaking from my heart.
Yeah.
And I found out when I started speaking from my heart, things came out a lot smoother, you know. And so I would do morning motivations. Like one episode I said, what did I say? Not you, bro, not you, sis. And basically what I'm talking about is like when you're consuming porn, you don't realize the trail that you leave.
Yeah.
Because when you go on that site and you click that button, that registers. That registers in your database. And so like, and then there were times where there's some brothers I know, they're following questionable accounts. Because on Instagram, that search section is dangerous, man.
It is.
It is it is so dangerous, man. I try to avoid that part at all costs because it's just everything is in that section. But I you'll come across it because sometimes it's unavoidable. Like it'll show up on your wall when you're scrolling, and I see certain pictures, and I'm seeing likes from people I know, and it's like, and I'm not one to judge
Yeah.
because I've been there. I've been there, so I'm not one to judge, nor will I judge,
Nope.
because once again, I've been there. But it's like you do realize that if I see it,
Everyone
other
else.
people see it too.
Yeah. And that means the algorithm already has you locked in, which means now it's going to be referring content to you to the end of time.
Exactly,
Mm.
and that's the key, man. That is definitely the key, man. But like I said, Triple X Life No More. I'm currently working on season 2. Trying to get a couple people if they're willing to speak. Just to give people a different aspect of how it affects people in different ways.
Yeah.
Because not everybody is affected the same way. You know.
Well, speaking of being affected, we're talking just about the triggers a second ago. How do you react now? Like when a triggering event gets into your environment, what are you doing at this point? How are you leveraging, whatever you have available to you in order to get past it?
So now, what I do is I immediately remove myself from the trigger.
Mm.
So if it's something that's on Instagram, I'll immediately scroll it or block it because right now what we're battling with is porn bots.
Yep.
And it got to the point on Twitter where I put my account on private, man, because especially the Triple X Life, it seems like it's a major. It seems like it's a satellite for porn bots
Yeah.
because of the Triple X, and I'm like, I was thinking for 1 second, like maybe I should just change it to probably just spell out the word triple
Yeah.
and then put an X, and then but I was like, you know what? I can just put that in the handle. In the handle part, I can put spell out the triple X, but still keep it in the logo. You know.
Yeah.
So, just going through different things. And so now, yeah, like with the porn box, I just immediately blocked them because I already know, like,
It's the only effective
it's
way.
got,
It's the only effective
yeah,
way.
only effective way.
Yeah.
And now it got to the point where Instagram, they like your pictures and videos.
Well, good. It helps spread
You
the
see the
message.
hearts going up and I'm like, who's this? And then you click on like, oh my goodness, man. Like, oh, just right there. And it's like, man, tell me, man, the devil, man, he is so cunning, man.
Well,
Because immediately you see those likes, you're gonna want to know who it is. As soon as you click on, it's like bam, like oh come on, man.
I started seeing that game being played several years ago on Twitter, and
Yeah,
I at first I was getting mad at the cam operators for doing it because they're the most malicious ones because they have the rational brain and they're the ones getting into.
yep,
I would say, could you imagine going to an AA meeting and bring in like a six pack and passing them out? That's what these cam operators were doing. They were going into recovery spaces for porn addicts and throwing
yeah,
out their content. And that's when I recognized, like, these people have no ethical or moral boundaries whatsoever.
yeah,
All they care about is making a buck. And
yeah,
uh,
exactly.
and I've been trying to coach guys. I mean, you can check back on my Twitter account too. I've been trying to coach men to like either completely drop the Twitter account. I don't blame you if you do it, and
Right.
no harm, no foul. Just do it.
Yeah,
Good for you.
yeah, you have to. Yeah,
But if you stay on and you know that you have a porn addiction, you have got to leverage this space to your favor, which means that you like people who are in your space, that the people you
yeah,
want to hear the message from, and you block everybody else and don't even think twice about it.
absolutely.
And you have to have that
Exactly.
resilience to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I always say this, man. I always say this jokingly, but also serious at the same time. I say, don't play with it.
Nope.
Don't play with it because it'll bite you.
Mhm.
You linger on that page long
It
enough,
only takes a
you
second.
yeah. All it takes is a second, man. So always that second, third, fourth look. That's and next thing you know, boom, it's like, why did I do? Because you gotta dismiss it,
Yeah,
you know?
because once that
Just
craving starts hitting, that is the slippery slope. You can get the trigger, and it might take a few seconds for the craving to hit, but once that craving
yeah,
starts to hit, and then all the denial mechanisms in your mind starts getting tripped, and then you have
yep.
less and less resistance, and then you're just going to follow through with it, and it'll be the
Yep.
saddest thing ever because you'll say to yourself, "Why did I just do that?" Because
Exactly.
yeah,
Yep. Yeah. And so like I said, I immediately remove myself from the triggers and also from what I've been through, it comes in like second nature now. So when I see it and I'm like, for a moment, it's like, remember why you hate porn, and then it's like, boom. But that didn't come overnight.
yeah,
I had to work that. I had to work my defense mechanisms to get where they are today. You know what I'm saying?
hmm
That's a continual, like I said, it's a continual thing. Like you can't relax.
it's a
Even though,
good way to put it.
even though we've been in recovery for a certain amount of years, we can't relax
You're right.
because it's at the moment that you relax that you will surely fall. you know?
And you're
And my thing is I'm afraid.
you're out there every single day posting. You're like working this like nonstop, like talking
Yeah,
about things that are in our space and like, helping share that so it's fresh in your mind all the time. And it was something I
yeah.
wanted to ask you about because you mentioned that early on you got in contact with some, I want to call them recovery brothers, but you got in contact with some people that helped you out. Do you still maintain that contact? Do you still have a social network of your own that where you can reach out and talk to people?
So I kind of started something on Twitter, like Twitter Space and stuff like that, but it kind of went by the wayside because most of the people I talk to we're in like different time zones and stuff like that, so it's hard to really communicate. So every once in a while, I'll check in, like how's everybody doing and stuff like that. And, some people will respond, and then I have some people that are doing stuff like yourself, doing recovery programs and stuff like that, and videos and stuff like that. And so, yeah, so I have a couple people that do that. And so where I gain all my knowledge from is by following Fight the New Drug, um, the NCIOS, I think. Well, it talks about, sex trafficking and,
Yeah, I
child
think that's a
exploitation and
British
stuff.
group that you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Exodus Cry,
oh,
I follow them. I
great
follow most,
organization. Yeah.
yes, very, very good organization, man. I love how they gather their information and how they share it and package it a lot. There's also a lady that I like listening to. Her name is Dr. Trish Lay.
Hmm.
She's a neurologist, and she does a lot of good videos on pornography and the effects and stuff like that, and how it affects the brain and stuff like that. So she comes from a medical aspect, a medical scientific aspect of it.
I think I've seen her. She's on YouTube, isn't she?
Yes,
Yeah.
she is. Yes, she's very good, man. I learned a lot from her, especially. I think one of the keys in being in this space is to be not only very knowledgeable, but to um, take what you hear and like make it your own.
Yeah.
You know, take what you hear and make it your own, and that could be your part of your arsenal against this battle of porn consumption, because the temptation is never going to leave us.
No, it's not. Well, and the cool thing
Yeah.
about like especially what you're doing here is that I was lucky enough. I was lucky enough to have
Mhm.
proximity to a 12-step program dealing with sexual things, including pornography.
Right.
I was able to get into that locally. A lot of
Okay.
people throughout the country in various parts don't have access to those types of things. And
Mhm.
now, with our technology, especially with COVID, there's a lot more meetings that are opening up that people can get access to on Zoom and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Right.
But
Mhm.
still, a lot of people are doing things like NoFap, for example. Don't get me wrong; I am a huge supporter of NoFap. uh,
Yeah.
the problem, if I'm going to say that there's a problem, though, is that a lot of the help and support that you would get from a program, say like NoFap, is through an online form or like working like uh, uh, through X or Twitter or Instagram. Like you're working inside of those circles. And so it's not consistently always there, and there's not necessarily a set format for doing it. So a lot of these people are still going out there, like these young teenage kids they're recognizing they have a problem, and they're trying to jump in and do something, and they're grabbing onto anything they possibly can. And I've been in 12-step program long enough and seen other programs like Smart and other corresponding recovery networks that are out there, where I
Mhm.
recognize that there's similarities in all of the approaches, and it's good. It's amazing to listen to other approaches that are being done. And if you see something that works for you, try taking advantage
Mhm.
of it. Listen to everybody, and if you don't like something, you can always pass on it, but listen to everybody. Listen to what they're saying, because what you've just said here today, Gary, there's so much I'm
Mhm.
nodding my head to because I went through the same thing.
Mhm.
Especially the part with the wife, man, because like it's I'm guilty of the neglect too, and so I really take ownership when you're telling that start side of your story. If you get to that point, and I imagine there's going to be a larger population in a few years that are married and suffering that same fate, where
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
recognize that you've had this addiction, you've been denying that time from your family, from your wife, and let's not forget about the fact that you've been denying yourself, because denying yourself, your family, and your wife is you're the other victim. You're the one who broke yourself, and you denied
Yeah.
yourself all those all the pleasures of being able to spend time with your wife and playing with the
Mhm.
kids and all those other things. Like those are
Yeah.
so enriching experiences, and you robbed yourself of
Yes.
it. I robbed
Big
myself of
time,
it.
man. Yeah. And but the good thing about it is, man, we're in a better place now.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're in a better place now. And so when the temptation come our way, we just have to remember where we're at now.
Yes.
Remember where we're at now and be like, do I want to go back there?
Heck no.
Exactly. No, definitely not, man. Definitely not, man. I mean, listen, man, this peace of mind that I have, man, I never experienced peace like this, man. Matter of fact, when I was living in my sin, I had no peace at all. You know, and
You're
this
running to the sin trying to find the peace, but there really is no peace
right,
there. That's what you discover. That's the
exactly. There
trick of
will
it all.
never be. There will never be. Some people make an excuse and say, "Oh, this is to relieve my stress." No, it will not release your stress. It'll actually heighten your
It makes
stress.
it worse.
It'll make you do stress and depressed.
Two people telling you this. I know your listeners out there. Listen, listen. We've gone through this. We've gone through decades of this. It only
Yes,
makes it worse.
you will never be stress free with porn. You will always be stressed. You will always be down. You will never be able to accomplish anything with porn at all. There's nothing sweet about it at all. There's nothing beneficial about porn at all. Get it out of your life. Keep it out of your life.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Gary, we're running up on an hour, and I have got to. I've
Yes,
got
no
to
problem,
wrap
man.
it up. So what I want to do is you've got a lot of platforms, and I
Right.
want you to give you the opportunity to just tell
Okay.
everybody where they can find you and what type of content's available from XXS Life No More.
Okay. So you can find me on Twitter, which is it'll be Triple X Life No More. You'll see my gold logo, the circle with the sledgehammer hitting the triple X's. I'm also on Facebook, same thing, Triple X Life No More. I am on Instagram, Triple X Life No More, and I'm also on TikTok, Triple X Life No More. I mostly use my my Instagram and my TikTok. I mean, excuse me, not my TikTok. My well, I use TikTok too, but the ones I use mostly is Twitter and Instagram. Instagram, Triple X Life No More. So yeah, you can definitely follow me on those, and you can also check out my first season of Triple X Life No More podcast on Spotify
Mm.
and Spotify for artists. So it's Spotify and Spotify for artists. Used to be Anchor.
I'll put a link. I'll
So
put a link down below for everybody in case you're curious,
oh,
and it'll be down in the description.
okay, yeah, I appreciate that. So yeah, you could definitely follow me there for my first season. I'll also have what they call Monday morning motivations, where I talk about different subjects and stuff like that. Stuff just to encourage you throughout the day. The My Monday motivations are usually like less than 10 minutes, about 5 minutes max. So I don't really speak very long. I give at least 5 minutes or so. So I thank you for this time, and I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, man.
Well, and no problem. Thank you for coming on, and I appreciate you coming on to this particular YouTube channel. I try to promote when I possibly can anyone who's working out in the space, and I hope that you, the listening audience, have an opportunity to go out and subscribe to every single one of the. If you happen to have any of these accounts, go out, like, share, subscribe, and support our content creators who are working hard at trying to help in the recovery space. And I also want to, I thought it popped in my mind as we were doing this interview. We used to have another power hitter named Gary in this space, Gary Wilson, and unfortunately he passed a year and a half ago, I think now.
Oh,
So I'm grateful that we have another Gary in the space now. And
I appreciate it.
I'm glad that you came on, and I love the message, and I really wish you the best. And hopefully, maybe
Yeah.
in a not too distant future, get me on, man. I'd love to have you. I'd like to be on your podcast. Maybe we can talk
Oh,
some
of
more.
course. Of course. Yeah, I'll be definitely reaching out to you for sure, man. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody. This is Road to Recovery, and if you have the opportunity, like, share, and subscribe on my channel as well. Thank
Oh
you.
yes, of course, definitely. You know, I did already, man. I subscribed, so
Thank you, and
yeah.
and of course I did the same, and it's because I like the content, and we're always, I always keep my eyes and ears open. I like to hear what's going on in our little circles. So, thank you so much. I
Yes.
appreciate it, and thank you,
You're
audience. I appreciate you for listening in, and just keep on hitting play, man. You hear what it's about. The more we talk, the more we share, the more we actually share our emotions. It turns out that this is really powerful therapeutic help. And the more that
yes.
you can process
Yes.
these things, these stories, and hear that other people are going through this, the more it's going to help you because you take all that information in and you're more cognizant and aware. And there's less temptation that's going to come into your life because you know what? You see the damage it causes to you see the damage it causes to
Hmm.
the other people, and you know to stay away.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care and have a
Yeah.
successful road to recovery.